On the day my brother-in-law died in battle, my sister tried to kill herself by throwing herself at his coffin. After she was saved, the emperor praised her loyalty and personally named her a virtuous widow. Not long after, the second son of the Marquis family came to visit. My sister set me up to marry into their household, saying that with me there, she would at least have a sister by her side to ease her sorrow. After the wedding, Jack treated me extremely well. Before long, I was pregnant. Every day, she fed me all kinds of rich foods herself, saying I needed to recover well. But on the day I gave birth, the baby was too large and I had a difficult labor. The people in the manor only listened to my screams, yet not a single person went out to find me a doctor. As I was dying, my older sister came in holding a child and placed it beside my pillow. "Little sister, from now on, this will be your child. You can go in peace. I will help you raise her." Jack held her and the child in his arms, staring at me coldly. "You got to be the Marquise's wife for a year. That was already more than you deserved. The only woman I have ever loved is Lucy. If she had not gotten pregnant, I never would have married you just to put on this act." So it had all been their trap. Listening to their laughter, I breathed my last. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day the whole city was in mourning, when Marquis Dingyuan's coffin returned to the capital. The cold wind cut like a knife, blowing ash from paper offerings into my face. I sharply sucked in a cold breath. It felt as if my lungs still held the tearing pain from my difficult labor in my last life. But what I heard was no longer the midwife's cold urging or Jack's cruel laughter. It was thunderous funeral music and piercing cries. I instinctively touched my flat stomach, my fingertips trembling. I really was back. Heaven had eyes. It actually sent me back to the starting point of this crime. Not far away, my older sister Lucy stood in the center of the crowd, dressed in mourning white. Her face was pale as paper, her body frail as a willow in the wind. Only her red lips stood out in the sea of white, making her look especially pitiful. She had married Marquis Dingyuan, Tom, only 2 days before her husband put on armor and went to war. Less than a year later, news came back that he had died on the battlefield. The army had been ambushed, and the Marquise's body was never found. Even the Agerwood coffin carried back today held only a blood-stained, shattered set of armor. The emperor honored Marquis Dingyuan for dying heroically for the country. Breaking ancestral rules, he personally brought the empress and all the court officials to the city gate to welcome his coffin home. A white funeral procession came forward. Long banners blocked the sun, and the funeral music was heartbreakingly mournful. Supported by her maid, Lucy slowly walked toward the massive coffin. With every step, she swayed, as if she might collapse at any moment. In my last life, right in front of the emperor, the empress, and all the officials, she suddenly pushed away her maid in the height of her grief and threw herself at the coffin. Her blood stained the white cloth and the Marquis Dingyuan Manor's gate. Because of that, she earned the reputation of a loyal, chaste widow, and was personally named a second-rank honored widow by the emperor. Back then, I was that stupid. Out of sisterly love, I was terrified and rushed forward to stop her. My body became her cushion. Not only was she rescued without a scratch, but my chest was slammed so hard that it bruised badly and hurt for half a month. My ridiculous act of bravery had actually helped her and completed her perfect performance. This time, I stared coldly at the calculating glint in her eyes. I wanted to see how she would finish this act safely without me as her human cushion. I stepped forward, tightly holding my sister's arm, pretending to be heartbroken and deeply devoted to her as tears welled in my eyes. "Sister, you have to hold on. The Marquis's spirit in heaven would never want to see you destroy yourself like this." Lucy glanced at me without leaving a trace, and I clearly saw a flash of annoyance in her eyes. She took a deep breath, her eyes flickered, and she suddenly raised her voice, crying miserably. "My husband, why did you leave me behind? The long night is endless, and the road to the underworld is cold. How could I bear to let you go alone? Lucy will come with you now." With that, she suddenly used force, shook off the maid's hand, and put on a determined look. Crying as she ran, she slammed herself toward the rock-hard Agarwood coffin. She moved fast, but the angle of her body was clever. Clearly, she had calculated that I would rush forward like before and catch her. I pretended to wipe my tears, but in that instant, my wrist slipped away like an eel, and I stepped back half a step. Covering my face, I cried even louder than she did. "Sister, you have to accept it. Do not cry yourself sick." Lucy never expected me to suddenly let go. She had held back a bit, ready to be stopped by me at any second. Now her balance was completely gone, and her foot stumbled. She rushed forward fast and hard. With a dull, terrifying bang, the sound echoed through the city gate. Without me blocking her, Lucy's forehead slammed hard into the copper-studded edge of the coffin. It all happened too fast. Everyone froze in shock. Lucy did not even have time to scream. A horrifying gash split open on her forehead. Blood gushed out like a broken dam, splashing onto her white mourning clothes and the black coffin. It was a horrifying sight. She slid down limply like a rag, collapsed heavily to the ground, and passed out completely. I laughed coldly inside, but on the surface I instantly let out a heart-wrenching scream and threw myself toward her, ignoring the blood on the ground. I looked at Lucy lying limp on the ground. That face that always carried an air of nobility was now pale and covered in blood. In my heart, I felt nothing but satisfaction. "Sister! Sister, what happened to you?" I cried so hard my whole body shook, holding her shoulders tightly and shaking her. "Somebody, get a doctor! Save her!" Only then did the officials and commoners snap out of it. The palace maids and eunuchs beside the emperor rushed over, lifting Lucy in a flurry and carrying her inside the city gate. Inside the temporary soft tent, everyone from the Marquis Dingyuan household and all the officials' female relatives were deeply shaken by what had just happened. After a long silence, the room erupted in sharp gasps. Old Madame Dingyuan had already been devastated by the loss of her son. Seeing her daughter-in-law act so decisively, she cried even harder and kept bowing her head. My son, why did she have to do this? A noble lady wiped her tears with a handkerchief and sighed. What a fierce and loyal woman. She hit the coffin without hesitation. She must have truly wanted to die. The empress stood beside the emperor. After witnessing that tragic crash with her own eyes, she said with reddened eyes, Your Majesty, Lady Dingyuan's act of loyalty could move heaven and earth. The Marquise Dingyuan family is full of loyal souls. Even the woman he married is this strong-willed. It truly deserves respect. The emperor was deeply moved as well. He slightly raised his head and sighed. A woman this loyal, willing to die with her husband, should be rewarded and held up as a model for all women. The empress speaks wisely. The emperor looked around and announced loudly, Prepare the decree. Lady Lucy of Marquis Dingyuan is virtuous and loyal. She is to be named a second-rank honored widow, as my reward to the family of a loyal minister. Grant her 100 taels of gold and 50 bolts of brocade. When the Marquise Dingyuan family heard this, they temporarily suppressed their grief. This was an enormous honor for their household. Supported by the clan members, the old madam led everyone to kneel and receive the decree. This old woman thanks your majesty on behalf of the Marquis' household. Kneeling in the crowd, I curled my lips in a barely noticeable smile. Your majesty, the faster and higher this reward comes, the harder Lucy will fall later. The higher she climbs, the more completely she will shatter when she falls. The soft tent was filled with the smell of blood. Lucy had been placed on a couch, and a palace maid had barely covered the wound on her forehead with clean white cloth. But blood quickly soaked through again. Jack hurriedly squeezed in from outside. He wore plain mourning clothes, and his usually gentle, refined face was now full of anxiety. He quickly walked to the couch and looked at the unconscious Lucy. A trace of unconcealable pain and panic flashed in his eyes. He turned to look at me, his voice trembling with restraint. Second miss, is my sister-in-law all right? Seeing his deeply affectionate act made my stomach churn. In my last life, it was this same hypocritical face that carried tonic soup to me every day and said, Anna, you must take good care of yourself. But on the day I died in labor, he held his sister-in-law and smiled as he watched me breathe my last. I forced down the hatred in my heart and put on a panicked, helpless look. I turned to the matron standing beside the empress. Matron, has the imperial physician arrived? My sister has lost so much blood. Please have the physician check her right away. She is now a virtuous widow personally honored by the emperor, a model for the women of Great Chu. Nothing can happen to her. If I remembered correctly, Lucy was already 1 month pregnant by now. In my previous life, the reason she was so eager to push me into the Marquis' household was to make it easier to swap the child. Tom had been away at war for a year. If she gave birth, it would be a capital crime. So they plotted for me to marry Jack. After she secretly gave birth, they would claim the child was mine from my difficult labor. With that switch, not only could they protect their illegitimate child, but that child could also rightfully become the legitimate grandson of the Marquis Dingyuan family and even inherit the title one day. And from beginning to end, I was nothing but an incubator, a cover they could throw away at any time. This time, I would make sure her pregnancy was exposed openly at the emperor's feet, in front of the entire court. I would turn her personally granted second-rank title into a blade hanging over her and Jack's necks. As soon as I finished speaking, Jack's face visibly changed. He suddenly straightened up, his eyes darting away as he hurriedly stopped it. No, this would be too troublesome. After all, we are outside the city gate, and this place is crude. The palace physicians are far too noble for this. Let it go. Once we return to the Marquis Manor, I will have the best doctor in the capital treat my sister-in-law. His eyes were full of concern, but he was afraid that once the imperial physician checked her pulse, Lucy's 1-month pregnancy would be exposed. He reached out, seemingly trying to block the physician outside the tent. How could I let him have his way? I stood up abruptly and said loudly and urgently, Young Master Jack, what are you saying? My sister tried to die for the Marquise. Her loyalty could move heaven and earth. Is she not even worthy of treatment from an imperial physician? She was just personally honored by the emperor as a virtuous widow, and she is your own sister-in-law. She has lost so much blood. If something happens to her on the way back, can you take responsibility for that? Can you face your older brother, whose body was never even found?